Join with me as I explore and discuss tools for healthy relationships every Monday, 12:15 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM.
All right, guys, just about 18 minutes past 12 noon at this time. Let me say good afternoon. Welcome, Petreece, and Happy New Year to you.
Good afternoon, Tiffany. Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to all our viewers or listeners. Happy New Year.
Good to
So,
have
of
you back,
course,
Petreece.
yes, it's good to be back. It's good to be here. Yeah, really grateful to be in 2026, right? And I know January is normally a month of reflection and prayer and fasting for a lot of people. And while I would have done a program or programs on self awareness, I felt it is very important for me to address this again. And of course, that format of 10 things you should know, and it's 10 things you should know about self awareness.
Right.
It's going to be a two-part program. And I think it's important because self awareness, which is a skill, is actually so important and necessary to sustain healthy relationships. I think even our relationship with God, because if I am not aware of how sinful I am, I will not be aware of how much gratitude I should have to God for his forgiveness. Right? So I think self-awareness is just so critical. Now, I don't believe that any of us are 100% self-aware, but definitely a lack of self-awareness can cause so much conflict, so many different misunderstandings, and even the breakup and breakdown of relationships. So me, I can share this over and over because I know even though persons have heard it, as Peter would have said, it is nothing for me to remind you of this. He was saying this in First Peter or Second Peter. But also, we always have new persons listening. And if you're listening for the first time, thank you so much and Happy New Year to you. But I'm looking at 10 things that you should know about self-awareness. And the 10 things that I would be discussing in this two-part series are: 1, what is self-awareness? 2, two types of self-awareness. 3, 5 elements or components of self-awareness. 4, the benefits of self-awareness. 5, what actions or behaviors indicate a lack of self-awareness. 6, what childhood experiences may cause persons to lack self-awareness. 7, warning signs that you need to improve your self-awareness. 8, how to increase your self-awareness. 9, how to help your children grow in self-awareness. And 10, it is an ongoing process. So these are the 10 things that I'll be discussing in this two-part series about self-awareness. And I'm hoping to get through number 1 to number 5 in this program. So what is self-awareness? So even as I'm asking that, you can try to answer, right? But self-awareness is the ability to see yourself clearly and objectively through reflection and introspection. And reflection not just meaning you are reflecting, but also getting feedback from others. It includes gaining an understanding of and insight into your strengths, your qualities, your weaknesses, your ideas, your thoughts, your beliefs, your responses, your reactions, your attitude, your motivations, your emotions, right? Self-awareness includes assessing how one is perceived by others and how others are impacted by your behaviors, your conduct, your responses. So it's not just about understanding and knowing yourself, but it is also about how others see me, how does my behavior impact my conduct, my attitude, how do these things impact others. So self-awareness, of course, will be important in every area of our lives. And just think about someone you've met and you could tell that they lack self-awareness, how uncomfortable it feels interacting, communicating, dealing with the person, right? Is extremely important in every area of life, but we know for relationships, so critical. If you are aware of the things you say and do, you're able to recognize when your actions bothering someone or hurting someone or angering someone, right? Now, this may sound straightforward, but it can take adults many years to work on this skill. And this is one of the things that I do even in my own work, in my own practice, just helping persons to become more self-aware. And when we look at the benefits of self-awareness, you will see why that is so important, not just about having healthy relationships, but for you, the individual. And so you can know what self-awareness is, but to be able to become more self-aware and to apply that to your life can take time, and it will take conscious effort on your part. So being self-aware is a demonstration of one's ability to accurately recognize one's own emotions, thoughts, values, along with the ability to understand how you impact and how they impact your behavior, but also to be able to assess how your behavior is impacting others. Now, secondly, number 2, so we're dealing with 10 things you should know about self-awareness. Number 2, there are 2 types of self-awareness. There are 2 types of self-awareness. We have private or internal self-awareness, and you have public or external self-awareness. And just the word, I'm sure you're understanding what that would mean. So private or internal self-awareness represents how clearly we see our own values, passions, aspiration, our fit with our environment, or reactions. And when we talk about reactions, you're thinking about your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, right? And the impact on others. So internal or private self-awareness has to do with how clearly you see yourself and what is happening in your internal world, and being able to assess your strengths, your weaknesses, know your feelings. So it is you, internal. And internal self-awareness or private self-awareness is associated with higher job and relationship satisfaction, personal and social control, and happiness. And we can understand that because you have a sense of who you are, so you tend to choose interactions and choose activities more aligned to who you are as a person. Now, public or external self-awareness, it means understanding how other people view you or view us in terms of our values or passions or aspirations fit with the environment, right? So you understand how other people view you. So you may have a certain way of reacting, and you understand how people see that or view that. You have your way of doing life and seeing life, and you understand how that impacts others and how others view that. And research shows that people who know how others see them are more skilled at showing empathy and taking others' perspectives. Now, it is, I suppose, natural or easy to assume that being high on one type of awareness, so one type of self-awareness, whether personal or whether private, sorry, or public, would mean being high on another. But research has found that there's virtually no relationship between them. So you could be high on internal or private self-awareness and low on public or external self-awareness. So there's no relationship between them. But this is important. We need both. And I'm sure listening, you realize for a person to be considered a self-aware person, an aware person, you need to be high on both the public and the private self-awareness. So when we look at that dynamic of high, those two areas, and we look at high and low, we can get 4 different types of spaces that people are in based on their level of public and private self-awareness. So you have the introspector. That person is high on the internal or private self-awareness, but they're low on the public or external self-awareness. So they are clear on who they are, but don't challenge their own views or search for blind spots by getting feedback from others. So they know this is who I am, right? I know I like this, I don't like that. This is my approach to life. This is, how I do what I do. And with this, and they're not seeking feedback from others, this can harm their relationships. So their relationships end up being about them and how they see things. So this can harm their relationships and limit their success. And then you have the seekers. And the seekers, they are low on internal or private self-awareness, but they are also low on the public or external self-awareness. So they don't know who they are. They don't know what they stand for, right? They don't understand how people see them, right? Because of that, they could feel stuck and get very frustrated with their relationships, with their performance, and just with life. So they are low on both. And then you have the persons who are high on the public or the external self-awareness, so they know how people see them, but then they are very low on the internal or private self-awareness. So they are pleasers. They can be so focused on appearing a certain way to others that they could overlook what matters to them. Over time, they tend to make choices that burn them out. Choices that bring, especially with relationships, that bring pain to them, right? And don't find fulfillment in what they do, because really it's about pleasing others. They're so aware of how others see them and not knowing who they really are and what they want out of life. And then the final area would be the aware person. And the aware person, as stated before, would be high on the public self-awareness and high on the private self-awareness. So they know who they are, what they want to accomplish, and seek out and value others' opinions, right? This is very important. So their relationships are healthier, how they interact with themselves and others would be healthy. So you're listening to me today, and it would be good for you to think about, even as we talk about these 2 types of self-awareness, which one you think you need to work on. Do you need to work on the private self-awareness, me really knowing me, understanding my strengths, my weaknesses, understanding about, my emotions, knowing what I feel, being able to manage emotions, all those different things? Or are you good at the public? So I know how people see me. Or are you good at both? So it's good, even as you're listening, to think about it. Where do you feel you need to do some work? The third, what you need to know about self-awareness is there are 5 elements or components of self-awareness. So we looked at what is self-awareness. We looked at the 2 types of self-awareness, and that's so important. And now we're looking at the 5 elements or components of self-awareness. So this is what self-awareness is made up of. These are the different areas. If we need to work, we need to work on these 5 components. So the first one is consciousness. This means being aware of your internal experiences, including your emotions and your thoughts. So you're conscious, right? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? So you can actually think about your thinking. You know that, right? And you can identify your thoughts. So if we have to be self-aware, this is one of the components. Consciousness. I'm aware of what is happening inside of me. I'm aware of my emotions and thoughts. And we could see how, with all this being on social media all the time, busyness, noise, how person's self-awareness could be impacted because we are not conscious of what is happening with us. And when we are not conscious of what is happening with us, what is happening with us will beat us up. It will take over, whether we like it or not. And then the next element or component of self-awareness is self-knowledge. And this is focused on your understanding of who you are, including your beliefs, your values, your motivations, your core values, your approach to life, your love languages, just knowing who you are. This is important. Thirdly, the third component or element of self-awareness is emotional intelligence. And this is focused on your ability to understand and manage your emotions, and also to understand the emotions of others and be empathetic. So someone who is self-aware, this is also an area that they function well in. So they understand their emotions and manage it, of course, because there's that consciousness. Because first you have to be conscious to be able to manage, right? So they're able to understand and manage the emotions, but they're also able to understand and identify emotions in others and be empathetic. And we're talking about, and I did something on empathy, so we're talking here about compassionate empathy. And then we have self-acceptance. That's another important component of self-awareness. This is centered on accepting who you are and showing yourself compassion and kindness. So, I know it have good, bad, and ugly in me, and I'm allowing God to work on that while I have that compassion on myself, right? I am a work in progress. And self-acceptance is important, because if I'm not able to accept certain things, I cannot work on it. And I also have to know everything is not going to change. Petreece can't sing. I doubt that will change. I don't know if when I meet Jesus, that may change. But I could accept that and be okay with that. So I know certain things, no. So if 98.1 have an audition because they want to get all the best gospel singers in Trinidad, I wouldn't be there. And nothing is wrong with that. So that self-acceptance is also about accepting your weaknesses. And that's okay, because God knows where he wants you to fit. And you having compassion, not beating up on yourself because you can't do or you're not wired to do certain things. A nose should not beat up on itself because it cannot see. A nose wasn't created to see, right? So, and then the final component is self-reflection. And this involves being able to think deeply about your feelings, your thoughts, your goals, what is happening in your life to gain an even better understanding of who you are and your place in the world. So these are the 5 elements or components of self-awareness: consciousness, self-knowledge, emotional intelligence, self-acceptance, and self-reflection. And even as you're listening, where is there a lack, or where there might be a lack in your own life? Because if we have to be self-aware persons, we need to have all of these areas. They need to be healthy. Yeah? So think about that. So those 5 elements or components of self-awareness. So we know what self-awareness is. We know that there are 2 types of self-awareness, which could lead to 4 different types or levels of being self-aware in a person. And then we have 5 elements of or components of self-awareness. So we need to be good in all 5 of these elements to be considered self-aware. So we're talking about all this self-awareness, but what are the benefits of self-awareness? So that's number 4. So the benefits of self-awareness: you are able to manage and regulate your emotions. You are better able to regulate and manage your emotions. You are aware of how you feel, so you can be proactive with your emotions. And remember, when I talk about being proactive with your emotions, I'm talking about identifying it. So, okay, what am I feeling? What can I think and or do to feel differently or to operate differently, right? So you have greater self-control when you have a healthy self-awareness. You're better at communication, obviously, right? You know yourself, you're aware of your feelings, your needs, your wants, and you can understand the feelings, needs, wants of others. You're empathetic. So just these things, and of course more, helps you to be better at communication. You are better at decision making. You know your values, you know your beliefs, you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses. You have a sense of what God is doing in your life and what God has called you to do. So then, yes, you would make better decisions in alignment with why you are here, with who you are as a person. And of course, if we're better at communication, if we're better at regulating our emotions, we would have improved relationships, or relationships tend to be healthier. And then we have higher levels of happiness because, for one, you understand and you know the things that make you happy. And therefore, you're able to engage in those activities more often. You're more confident. There's better job satisfaction. You actually are a better leader if you are more self-aware. You have a better overall perspective on things because you don't only see things through your eyes, but you're able to benefit from the perspective of others. You're able to grow from others' perspective because you're able to see other people's perspectives, other people's beliefs, and take that into consideration with how you deal with them, but also with your own life. So you have a better overall perspective. You're more likely, you recognize your strengths and your challenges. So you're not defensive. You know, okay, I'm good at this, I'm not good at that. And therefore, you know where you need to work. And sometimes you know where I am not supposed to venture into that. That is not for me, right? You understand and talk about your needs and your feelings. And this is so, so important, especially in our intimate relationships. Being able to talk about what we need, being able to share feelings. Emotional intimacy is the deepest level of intimacy, so critical for healthy relationships. And you also recognize other people's needs and feelings. Again, you are empathetic, and you're able to recognize what is happening in another person, right? You're able to see how your behaviors affect others. And sometimes, even before the person is able to say that you hurt them in some way or offended them in some way, you could tell, you could see. And oh my God, sorry, I should not have said that. I am so, so, so sorry. Sorry for embarrassing you. Oh my goodness. Please forgive me. You can see how your behaviors affect others. You can see how you probably made someone uncomfortable, right? With greater self-awareness, you develop a growth mindset and learn from your mistakes because you want to know who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, how you're impacting others. So you are willing to get feedback. You're willing to get constructive criticism so that you can grow because you have a growth mindset. Listen, failing doesn't make me a failure. Failing is a stepping stone to success. Failures teach me about areas where I need to change and I need to grow. Self-awareness helps us to admit our sins and mistakes, right? Because we are aware that we're not perfect. We are aware of where we're battling, yes, which makes us more likable. Yes, we like people who say, I was wrong. We like people who say, yes, that was really bad of me. That was not kind what I did there. That makes you more likable because people know you're not perfect, right? And it opens us up to making positive changes in our thinking, our behavior, in our relationships, right? But it also helps us to be more patient with others because when we are able to admit our sins or mistakes, we realize, okay, everybody dealing with something. And just as I would want patience from others, I need to give patience to others, right? Self-awareness helps us to remain humble. Realize we're not perfect. We realize that we need God's love and grace. We realize that we need relationships. We realize that we are growing. It all boils down to we realize that we're not all that. Please. You know who's all that? Jesus. Jesus is all that. I am not all that. You are not all that. And self-awareness shows us that. So it helps us to remain humble, right? It helps us remain humble. And we have to remember what scripture says. God doesn't like pride. Pride goes before a fall. Self-awareness helps us to know how to make ourselves happy in healthy ways because we are aware of the things that energize us. We are aware of the things that drain us. And self-awareness helps us to have gratitude. It helps us to have gratitude because we could see the many times where we wouldn't have made it if it wasn't for this brother, if it wasn't for this sister, if it wasn't for God. We realize the many times our parents could have made different decisions, but they did certain things because they loved us and they cared for us. And we're able to have gratitude when we are self-aware. We're not entitled and. So you see how important having self-awareness is. It is so critical, so important. It does so much good. And we could see how not having it could really impact not just us, the individual who lacks self-awareness, but our relationships. Now, number 5, what behaviors normally indicate that you lack self-awareness? And now these are not all the behaviors, but these are some of the more common ones that indicate a lack of self-awareness. So number 1, you feel everyone else is to blame for things. You don't see your part in the issue. So there's no self-reflection, no soul searching. It's always someone else. And a lot of times persons, his friends and relatives have to tell us this, show us that you realize you're a blamer. You're always blaming some situation or circumstance. And if you're getting that kind of feedback, it means that you are lacking self-awareness. Number two, you are in denial. You're saying one thing, but you're acting differently. So I'm saying that, I want to have a healthy relationship with so, but then everything you're doing, destroying the relationship. But you're in denial, right, about how your actions are impacting. It's like somebody being an addict and they're in denial about their true state, right? We as human beings are great at inventing what seem to us to be logical reasons for what we are doing. Seems very logical. Everybody looking on could see this is crazy. This is not healthy. This behavior is so unhealthy. But you could invent a reason that seems logical to you why you're doing what you're doing. And often, sometimes it's because we don't want to face certain things or because it scares us to face certain things. So we're not true to ourselves. We are in denial, right? Because we just don't want to deal with things. Now, a third behavior that indicates a lack of self-awareness is where we make excuses or get defensive. So in your mind, you are right, and there's a perfectly good reason why you are right. And everyone else just does not get it, right? So you make excuses. I'm right, or they just don't get it. And in your mind, yes, I have the reason. Or you act defensively. And people who are acting defensively, what they're really trying to do is to defend or protect themselves from feeling some kind of uncomfortable way, whether from feeling not good enough or viewing themselves as failed, right? Or in some type of negative light. I don't want to be seen in that negative light. So whatever you're saying to me, I am not receiving it. So I'm either throwing back something at you, but yes, remember when you did so and so and so, right? Or don't come around me with that. They don't want to hear. So they tend to focus, especially so persons who are defensive tend to focus a lot on their intentions, which may be good, but they don't see how their behaviors are hurting others. And when there is a lot of defensiveness and excuses, that's an indication of a lack of self-awareness. You're not comfortable with who you are. There is something in there that you're not comfortable with. And number four, another behavior that indicates a lack of self-awareness is you show an inability to give and receive apologies. It's difficult for you to apologize. It's difficult for you to receive an apology. So when someone apologizes, you do accept it, or you believe some other person needs to keep apologizing. Now, this is not even where, and I know I would have shared with you all the 5 apology languages, what sounds like a sincere apology is not even about that. They don't accept it. And they could therefore bring up the issue over and over, even though the person has already given a proper apology, right? And on the other hand, they hardly ever apologize. They rarely apologize. And if they do, it's really kind of a non-apology instead of a genuine acknowledgement of what they did. So, the apology with a but. Okay, I'm sorry, but anytime you say this, you just get me upset. So how else you expect me to behave? That's not an apology. So apologies don't have buts in them, right? They focus. So the focus is always on what the other person did or what the other person said. So it's difficult for them to apologize and it's difficult for them to accept an apology. That shows a lack of self-awareness. And the 5th one, you are passive aggressive, and we know about this type of behavior, right? This is really where it's like a deflecting from the issue that is bothering you, right? because you either don't have the will or the ability to confront it, to bring it to the front, to talk about it, right? So you use a kind of indirect, aggressive expression to hurt the person in some way or to confuse the person, without expressing what is really upsetting you. And sometimes you don't even know what the problem is because your self-awareness is low. So you don't even understand, why is this upsetting me so much? Why is this person actions making me feel so hurt? And you want to avoid confronting and dealing with the matter. So you show up in some kind of way where you try to hurt the person or upset the person or confuse the person, and they don't even know why you're doing it, and you're not saying what is bothering you. So I am upset that, I don't know, Huey left his sneakers in the living room, and I'm not saying that to him. I'm not telling him, I feel, unheard when you continue to leave your sneakers in the living room when we spoke about this and you agreed that you wouldn't put it there. I'm not saying that, A whole day, us slamming doors, which I know annoys him, or it makes him feel uncomfortable, or it makes him feel, uncomfortable. So I know it makes him feel uncomfortable. So whole day, I slamming doors. And he have no idea why I'm behaving like this. Right? Just creating a very uncomfortable environment. So that passive-aggressive behavior is an indication of a lack of self-awareness. Because remember, self-awareness has to also do with knowing how you feel, being able to manage it, and to be able to communicate how you're feeling in a healthy way. Number 6, you do not actually understand why you act the way you do, right? Because self-awareness deals with how well you understand your emotions, your actions, and your behavior. So people who lack self-awareness often feel constantly out of whack. I really don't know what's really going on with me, right? Anxious or angry. And sometimes they can't pinpoint what really is upsetting them half of the times. So you could choose, well, really, is Tiffany upsetting me this time? Poor Tiffany, not even in your equation. Or it's because the garbage truck came late, or something you don't know. You're not sure why. Number 7, you're prone to emotional outbursts. Many emotional outbursts happen because, one, a lack of self-control, but also a lack of self-awareness. When you don't have much self-awareness, you cannot figure out why you feel the way you do. Sometimes you're not even able to understand what you are feeling even below the anger, because as I said, anger is a secondary emotion. So while we may feel it first, there are other things that we're feeling there. So you don't truly understand or know how you are really feeling. So you're acting in response to something that is there, right? And you don't even know why. You also may not even realize the consequences of your outbursts or even care of how it is impacting others. And I always say to people, if we don't deal with our feelings will deal with us. So I've seen persons have not been aware how vulnerable they feel in their relationships, end up in crazy situations, unhealthy situations. Persons not even aware of how tired they are, and then just end up on their back, lying down, because their body's telling them something, but they are not in tune, right? So this is just an aside. Deal with your feelings. Tune into them. God gave them to us. They are not demonic. Because if we don't manage our emotions or feelings, they will manage us. So you're prone to emotional outbursts because you're not even aware of how you feel and the things that trigger you. Number 8, you do not adapt your behaviors. You use the same approach repeatedly without making any changes, even in dealing with different individuals or different situations. You don't modify. Even when the results show you, okay, this didn't work in this situation or this didn't work with that person, you're still not modifying your behaviors based on the results. So some people are more sensitive to words or affected by certain actions, but a person who lacks self-awareness will be the same way with everyone. And you know what? Leaving a trail of pain in their wake. Number 9, you are surprised by people's reactions to you. You are more focused on your intent than the impact of your behaviors on others. So you're always going back to, but that's not what I meant, that's not what I meant. Okay, but your behaviors had an impact. So let's take it a little further. So when someone gets frustrated or angry about your behaviors, you cannot understand why. And you're surprised by the person's reaction. So I'll stop there. Just have 3 more or 4 more on this part, but we'll continue it in the next program. So, of course, this is 10 things you should know about self-awareness. And I'm really hoping that this has been a blessing to you as you view and you listen.
Thank you, Petreece. Can you hear me?
Yes, hearing you, yes.
Okay, nice.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you so much for that one. Checking in for some messages if I have anything on the WhatsApp from those listening on. Don't forget, guys, we've got these programs on FB and TV. That's on YouTube, and Isaac the Promise on Facebook. Well, I saw Sister Listra Jack. She's saying, oh, yes, sis, I understand. That would have been a point you would have made earlier. So thank you, Sister Listra Jack. All right. Blessings to you. Petreece, once again, let me say thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you. And, of course, we will continue next week, God's willing. Yeah?
Yes.
So you have a blessed and beautiful day. And Happy
You
New
too.
Year to Huey as well and your beautiful daughter. So give my regards, okay? God bless you.
I will. God bless. Bye-bye.
Until again. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Hi, I'm Petreece Cuffie, counselor and trainer, and one of my deepest desires is to see people experience the fulfillment and growth that comes through healthy relationships. We're wired for relationships, so tune in and join with me as I explore and discuss tools for healthy relationships every Monday, 12:15 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM.
Isaac 98.1, Trinidad and Tobago's #1 gospel station.